Chapter 26. I grew up in a world dominated by whiteness. Santa Claus was white, the president was white, the Queen of England was white, which is why it seemed practical that fairy tale princesses, fairies, and mermaids were also white. Heroes, too, were white. Good witches were white women with blonde hair adorned in bejeweled white dresses, while wicked witches were white women who wore black clothing or had dark hair to signify their wickedness. In the afternoons on my black and white television, I watched Tarzan, a white man in a loincloth who ruled over the animals and savage Africans on the dark continent. When someone fell sick, the spiritual among us sent white healing light their way. A stint of bad luck was called dark days, and people who did bad things had black hearts. All my life, white represented purity, and black stood for all things sinful. In school, I learned that black people had contributed little to nothing to America, save for George Washington Carver's work with the peanut and Langston Hughes's famous poem about a raisin that inspired a play written by Lorraine Hansberry. I learned that Rosa Parks was tired and Martin Luther King had a dream, and that was the sum of my education regarding the civil rights movement. But by 1987, I had read dozens of books written by black writers about black people and the black experience here in America and abroad. Since graduation, many of my high school friends had traveled to Europe, the place we've been taught one should visit if they wanted to immerse themselves in high culture. I know, that was almost me. But my eyes were opening, and the haze of my Eurocentered education and Eurocentered existence was slowly clearing. While my friends were bouncing around countries that had colonized much of the globe, I was visiting those countries that had been colonized. After I completed the travel and tourism program, I treated myself to a trip to Barbados. It was May 1987, 13 long years since I last visited the island. In the taxi, I gazed out the window as awestruck as I'd been the first time I came to that enchanted place. It was still as beautiful as I remembered. There had been changes, of course, more paved roads, more cars and transport buses. Outhouses and outdoor showers were fading out of sight as most homes now had indoor plumbing. There were supermarkets now, though some people still grew their own peas and limes and raised chickens, ducks, and sows in their backyards. Many of the bearded fig trees had been cut down to make way for hotels and vacation homes that sat elbow to elbow along the pristine coastline. And there were many more white tourists than there had been in 1974. Great Britain loved Barbados so much that they nicknamed her Little England. The Barbadian people are very proud of that distinction and laud it over the heads of those who live on the other Caribbean islands. Of course, England favors Barbados. Why wouldn't she? It was in Barbados that England conceived the first British slave society, which is the primary link in a succession that would bring England untold wealth and power that she sustains today. In his book, The First Black Slave Society, Britain's Barbarity Time in Barbados, Dr. Hilary Beckles wrote, Barbados was the birthplace of British slave society and the most ruthlessly colonized by Britain's ruling elites. They made their fortunes from sugar produced by an enslaved disposable workforce, and this great wealth secures Britain's place as an imperial superpower and caused untold suffering. It is only in recent years that Barbados has begun to reckon with its past. In 1985, just 2 years before I returned to the island, Barbados erected a statue of Bussa, an enslaved African man who, in 1816, led the largest slave revolt on the island. Even with the statue as evidence, tour guides have been known to tell tourists that while slavery did not exist in Barbados, indentured servitude did. The house I had spent 3 summers in as a child had been moved a half a mile up the road and was in the final stages of its transformation from wooden shadow house to walled house. It had a veranda now, and that is the place I spent most of my time when I wasn't on the beach or in the nightclubs. In the early evenings, Dolly, Anita, and I would sit on the gallery to gossip and talk about Barbadian politics. Oftentimes, my aunts reminisced about the bygone days, and that was always my favorite part of the conversation. I felt so calm, content, and happy that I thought, I might be able to make a life for myself on the island. It was a revelation. Reconnecting with the island and my family was the very thing I needed during a time when I felt adrift. I started dreaming about moving there for good. More than 92% of the population of Barbados is black. Many white Barbadians can trace their lineage back to Scottish and Irish indentured servants sent by England to work alongside the enslaved Africans. Those descendants are referred to as Eckie-Beckies, which is a derogatory term used to describe poor white people. Frank Baines was one such descendant. He lived across the road from Dolly and Anita in a crumbling shadow house. He was well past 70 and bent over with wispy gray blonde hair and sun-toasted, deeply lined skin. His eyes were the color of blue sea glass. His children and extended family rarely came to look after him, and so Dolly and Anita, being the kind women that they were, kept an eye on him and fed him 3 meals a day. Even though he was rapidly losing his sight, he still noticed the swell of my breasts. When I handed him a plate of steamed fish and white rice one day, he gazed at my chest, sputtering, "Them some nice bubbies." "Ew, you dirty old man." Men commented on my legs and my behind, but my tits were small and usually unworthy of praise. It would be several weeks before I realized what his comment prophesied.